Okay, so you might have seen a video a while back where I picked up one of the new Friedman IRD preamp pedals, and I was kind of putting it through its paces. So I figured I wanted to go ahead and make a capture set of the IRD to see kind of how it translated onto the quad Cortex. So what I've got here is a preset where I've picked, four of my favorite tones from that. But we'll look at all the tones in the pack, and all these tones will be available on my Cortex Cloud account, as the preset will also be available. I'll put the link for that in the description, and you can go ahead and go download them if you're interested. So we look over here at the capture. I'm going to go ahead and click on the capture in the preset so that we can see the list of captures that I created. Here they are. So you can see the naming convention: Friedman, FRD, IRD. S is the gain stage. 1 is the lowest gain, 2 is kind of mid, and 3 is the higher gain. B1 or B2 is the bright tight switch, and then G is the gain levels. And I typically recorded 3 gain levels: 3, 5, and 8. I figure with those 3 and the gain tweak on the capture itself, you can probably get to where you want to go. And so for the preset, what I've done is I've brought in kind of 4 of my favorite of the captures to build a preset around. One is this IRD S1 B1 G3. So that's for a kind of a cleanish tone. On the edge of breakup, I've got the S2 B2, also a gain level 3. On the rhythm tone, I'm doing an S2, I'm using B1, and I'm going to gain level 5. And then the lead tone, I've got an S3, so the highest gain stage, B2, and the G8. So those are kind of the core captures that I've created the preset around. So all of these captures are DI captures, meaning I turned off the IR running on the IRD. Say that 10 times fast. Anyway, I wanted to do that so that I had a lot of options on the quad Cortex of how to use these captures. So if I wanted to, I could run through whatever IR cabs I wanted to. I could perhaps run a power amp capture after the preamp capture to maybe fill it in a little bit if it was needed. I'm not doing that in the preset. I didn't feel like I really needed to do that, but it was a good option to have. And all of these I'm running through a dual IR loader here. One is a Fender 2x12 and the other is a Marshall 4x12. I wanted this mix of cabinets to be able to handle clean through crunch. Obviously you can pick your own IRs and suit to your taste. And you can see here in my normal way, I've got the high pass at 70 Hertz and the low pass filter at 6,000. And in the back end, I've got a tape delay running at around 400 milliseconds, and I've got a hall reverb. And I also have an adaptive gate here that I'm sidechaining off of the input. So for some of these captures, I was getting a little bit of noise, and so I wanted to make sure I could clean up that. So I'm using the noise reduction here after the amps rather than using the input block. And before we jump in, just a quick reminder again, if you could hit the like, maybe leave a comment, those kinds of things really help, the analytics on small channels like mine. If you're considering getting a quad Cortex, there's a Sweetwater affiliate link in the description below. And as always, if you could subscribe, that would be great. Let's hear what the clean tone sounds like. Again, this is just the IRD capture into the cab with some delay and reverb on it. So a nice, pretty pure clean. There's not a lot of crunch when I dig in. In this scene, all I'm doing is I'm adding in a compressor on the end, and it's a dual compressor. I'm compressing a good amount. I'm adding a little bit of treble and bringing the volume back a little bit because I don't want it pushing the amp too much. So the compressor is pretty nice clean tone. For the edge of breakup, again, this is just the amp in the IR with some delay and reverb. So a nice gritty tone there. Can add an in-between position. And maybe even the 2 position. And then, you know, these tones are very kind of vintagey to me, so I wanted to add in some kind of vintage touches. So I've got a flange on the front just for kind of a... So I'm using the flangerish on the front here. So I'm using it in front of the amp as if it was a pedal. Adding in a good amount of drive just to give a little more grit. And obviously I've got the width all the way down because, you know, I'm running into those captures which are mono, so there's no point in adding a lot of stereo width to this effect. For the rhythm tone, just a straight ahead Marshall kind of rhythm. And then for this scene, all I'm doing is I'm adding in a fuzz face in front of that. Again, trying to keep it very... And then the lead tone by itself. Just kind of a nice higher gain Marshall-y kind of tone. And then for the boosted lead, I'm adding in a little bit of the Jewel compressor up front, and then I'm using a Friedman overdrive. I'm not adding in any gain. All I'm doing is tightening it up a little bit. So it really kind of pushes the front end of that capture a little bit more. And I think the sustain is great. You know, a lot of that's the compressor, but the Friedman also helps with that. So, you know, that's this preset just to kind of give you a sampling of these captures. And so these are Marshall kinds of tones. And so you could definitely get these kinds of tones by either using some of the Marshall models on the Quad Cortex or any of the thousands of Marshall captures that are on the Cortex Cloud. But, you know, I wanted to capture the IRD and kind of hear how that would sound on the Quad Cortex. And I figured, you know, I might as well share it with you so you can check them out if you want to. And so, like I said, these captures and this preset are all up on my Cortex Cloud account. The link for that's in the description below. And I hope you enjoy them. Thanks for watching.